Hello and welcome into Friday afternoon's edition of the Arizona State Sun Devils Insider Podcast. My name is Kevin Hicks, your lead beat writer for Arizona State Sun Devils on SI, and your host for the Sun Devil Insider Podcast. And I'm once again joined by the great Tanner Capolini for the bye-week edition episode of the podcast, where we usually preview the game a day or two before, but now we're going to talk about the bye week, the last 3 weeks of the season, and potentially the implications of what lies ahead for the Sun Devils in 3 winnable games over the final 3 weeks of the season. And Tanner, how are you doing on this Friday? And uh, what are you looking forward to over the stretch run of the season for the Sun Devils?
Yeah, Kevin, it's nice to be on. Things are going well. Thanks for asking. I think for me, what I'm excited really for is that U of A ASU game, to be completely honest. The final week of the season, I think that's going to be a really big game. But I think in terms of kind of more of the players, I'm really excited to really see how this team kind of looks forward with some of these other guys stepping up. And I think especially kind of the line play is what I'm most interested in. I think that we know that Jordan Tyson is going to be a first round pick, right? He's going to go high. Keith Abney, we know, is going to go pretty high. Like I feel like we kind of know where those guys are going to go, but I'm really interested to see how the line's going to kind of finish off, especially the defensive line. They had a really hot start to the season. They've kind of been a bit more quiet, so I'm really interested to see how they do the final couple weeks. Can these players make a push to the NFL draft? So yeah, overall, I'm excited for every game. I think Colorado too will be a really fun one. The coaching battle of Kenny Dillingham against Deion Sanders, I think, is really exciting. But yeah, really excited to see how the trenches go for ASU.
Yeah, the trenches are going to be a massive part of Arizona State's final push for the Big 12 title. There's no doubt about that, especially with Jeff Sims at the helm. We saw the Arizona State offense really look the best it has with Jeff Sims under center in the win against Iowa State, where they really adapted the offense to fit Jeff Sims perfectly. The power run scheme, lots of option game, lots of RPOs, uh, and he was efficient for the most part. He really led the charge for an overall strong performance. And the trenches will be continue to be vital. I mean, like you said, the offensive line. Not that they're facing any world-beating defenses over the last 3 weeks of the season, but they really need to stress that mind frame of we need to get 4, 5, 6 yards every play. That means that we're getting a first down. We need to limit our mistakes. We need to limit procedural penalties because that's been a big factor with the offensive line. And as for the defensive side of the ball, that's a good point. The defensive line has been a little quieter as of the. They did a great job against Texas Tech, but outside of that, they were a little quiet in the Houston game. That's why Connor Wegman was able to have the game that he did. The Iowa State game, I think Justin Watley really stepped up. I
Hmm.
wrote about that in a piece that came out earlier this week that he's a player that needs to continue to step up for this defense, especially with Prince Dorba's status being uncertain, seemingly week in and week out. Uh, I also put Jacob Rich Kangaika in there as well because him and CJ Fight have been a great duo over the last 2 years, but CJ tends to get the majority of the praise, and I think Kangaika gets a little lost in the fray, under the radar, a little bit. So yeah, that's exactly what I've been thinking. Um, and now, for really the meat of the episode, I kind of wanted to briefly touch on the last 3 games. So now I want to kind of talk about West Virginia a little bit. They obviously are coming off of a 45-35 win over the Houston Cougars, a team that just beat Arizona State 2 weeks ago. Uh, they've shown a lot of growth under Rich Rodriguez. Kenny Dillingham's really praised him for his offensive innovation, and their run game looks like one that could give Arizona State a little bit of trouble. So that's why the D line is all the more crucial, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, Kevin. I'm a bit nervous for this West Virginia game, to be honest. It kind of spells trap game when you look at ASU's coming off a bye week. There's no practice, is what Coach Dillingham was saying. This is a team that I think definitely could be trouble for ASU, potentially. So I do worry about that. They have a really good offense. I do think ASU should handle it, but like you said, the point you mentioned was really the procedural penalties have really cost ASU. And I feel like a lot of ASU's losses this season have, I wouldn't say, I don't know if the word's simple, but it's like kind of mistakes that could be preventable. It's like, okay, a penalty here. Special teams is another huge thing that I'm really worried about. So, yeah, I'm a bit worried about that game, to be honest. Kind of looking ahead, I'm really confident with Colorado. I think ASU should win that. I think they match up very well, and I think U of A will be tight, but they win. But yeah, West Virginia, I think it kind of scares me a bit, and I think sometimes ASU has fallen into the trap game a bit this week. Like Houston was kind of a trap game; they lost that. Utah on the road was kind of one. So, the thing is, West Virginia's defense is not that good. So hopefully we have another good Jeff Sims game. But yeah, I'm a bit worried, to be honest, about that game.
Yeah, the West Virginia has been a strange team this year because they defeated Pitt, they defeated Houston, so they've defeated two teams with solid resumes this season. They've also been blown out in a fair share of games, and there's been times where you really think, are they maybe the worst team in the Big 12, even worse than an Oklahoma State? But as of late, they've really shown a lot of growth. They almost defeated TCU about 3 weeks ago, I believe, as well. So obviously, lots of growth in year one under Rich Rodriguez, and I actually got to ask Coach Dillingham about Rich Rodriguez, and he really showed a lot of respect for him. He was basically like the proof is in the pudding with him. The track record of winning at different places, and really his teams playing their best football when the expectations are tempered a little bit. That's right there for everybody to see. I also think they found their real solution at quarterback in Scotty Fox Jr. He's had a couple of really strong games in I believe those were his first two starts with the program, and he hasn't turned the ball over. He hasn't necessarily been eye popping with his counting stats, but the offense is obviously more efficient with him in the fold. The run game looks better. I believe that they use him as a +1 quite a bit. So that's going to be an interesting kind of quirk for Arizona State, I guess, matchup wise. But ultimately, I think a home game, it being a home game, it being a homecoming week, all of these factors, and Arizona State ultimately having a more talented roster, I think it's going to be too much for West Virginia. Do think it's going to be a win. And as for Colorado, I agree with you. I think that Colorado is going to commit to Julian Lewis as their starting quarterback for the rest of the season, which he gives them a better chance. But that defense has just been absolutely hapless for the last two games. Gave up 53 points to Utah, I believe, and 52 to Arizona. There's just no excuse for that. And even if it's a cold weather game up in Boulder, the talent gap is just massive. I don't expect a very competitive game there. In the Arizona game, it should be competitive because Arizona's offense is really looking like it's humming in a way that people expected it to last season with Tet McMillan in the fold. But their defense isn't the best in the world, and I really ultimately trust Arizona State to ride the home game, the final game of the season, potentially having stakes. I think all those things are going to be major motivating factors for the Sun Devils. I think that they will get the win, just like you said. Although it could be more challenging than people thought going into the season. But as for that, if they go 3-0, there's a path for them to get to the Big 12 title game. They obviously have to have things go their way. Arizona State fans should have a very, very watchful eye on the results of Big 12 play tomorrow, because Brigham Young does go to Texas Tech, and that is their clearest path to getting back into the top two of the standings. I believe Texas Tech's final two games are against UCF and I think it's UCF and West Virginia. Um, so they're unlikely to lose their last two games. So that's really the last
Yeah, that's
realistic
correct.
effort. That's realistically the last effort they have to catch them in the standings. So Arizona State fans need to be big BYU fans tomorrow. They need to be big fans of Cincinnati and Houston losing another game. I believe Houston actually plays later tonight against UCF, and if they drop that game, then Arizona State has the standings advantage over them once again, so that clears something out of the way. Tanner, what are your ultimate thoughts on that race? Do you think that there really is a feasible path for them to get back into Arlington once again? Uh, I mean, I think we both agree they finished 3-0, but it's just there's so many other moving parts in place for the Sun Devils to get back.
Yeah, man, I think it is feasible. To be honest, I think they could get there. I think that this team has really proved that they can get there and they can fight. And you never know with how college football goes. It just feels like sports so far this season, whether it be football, basketball, at the college or professional level, has been unpredictable. And I think ASU's schedule matches up really well for this to happen, even though the West Virginia game does kind of give me some concerns. So I do like the pathway for ASU. I do want to ask something for you, Kevin. So obviously, if ASU goes 3-0, that's an awesome outcome. Yay. If they go 0-3 or 1-2, that's a bad outcome. If they go 2-1, where do you think kind of Coach Dillingham views his team? Do you think he'll make coaching changes at all to the staff? Like, where do you how do you think he kind of views the destiny of this team, if you will? Not where do you think he stands on kind of? He seems optimistic, but if things don't go according to plan, how do you think he would react?
Um, I don't think there's a linear way to answer that because I think there might be moving parts in the coaching staff regardless of how they finish the season. I
Okay.
wouldn't be surprised if you see Marcus Arroyo and Brian Ward both get mentioned as candidates for either an NFL job or
Mm-hmm.
a college coaching job. I know that Marcus Arroyo has spent a lot of time in the NFL in his coaching career, and that could be very enticing to get whether it's a quarterback coach position, an offensive coordinator position. Uh, I don't know because there's NFL coaching staffs are still a long way from being really in question. We all know the usually once a head coach gets in place for a new team, the rounding out the staff moves pretty quickly along with that. So we won't know probably for I mean, for a college job, we would probably know by the end of the month or early December because that's really when things need to start happening now with the transfer portal and everything else in play. Uh, I think Brian Ward and Marcus Arroyo really do like at Arizona State. I don't think either of their
Mm-hmm.
jobs are in jeopardy unless they leave on their own accord. That's what I'll say there. Uh, and the position coaches, I don't really think they have any reason to leave unless they get a promotion like how Hines Ward ended up at Arizona State. Uh, he got there because Rashawn Samples took the receiving coach position at Oregon. So if something like that happens, yeah, I think that that's understandable. But I think that they're very pleased with every position group coach, the coordinators, how players have been developed, the talent identification, the recruiting, everything that goes into play there has been met, I think. And I think the expectations thing has to have a little bit of context added to it at the end of the day because I think that we all know that this team probably is a 10 or 11 win caliber roster if it's completely whole, but they haven't been whole even since the first game of the season. They lost Jalen Moss in the first game of the season. Prince Dorba's been banged up most of the year like he was last year. Levitt's out for the year. It just feels like what went right last year has gone wrong this year, and um, we can unfortunately never get back the what ifs. They just kind of have to move forward with what they have, and I really the context of finishing the season is tough because if they lose to Arizona, that's obviously a big, big blow to the season. But um, I don't think the end of the season is going to change anything ultimately. And we lost Tanner. So thank you so much for tuning in to today's edition of the Arizona State Sun Devils Insider podcast. I think that we've covered pretty much everything that we needed to. And I will see you tomorrow with another episode, maybe with Tanner once again. We shall see.